My parents explained that a $200 gift was a bit extravagant for a 12-year-old, and that I'd have to pay half if I wanted it for my birthday. And so the saving began. By the system's release in the fall of 1991, I had saved up my share. I was ready. The problem was that my birthday wasn't until December. I was afraid stores would sell out before I could get one, so I made an agreement with my parents that I wouldn't play it until my birthday in December if I could get it early. The ploy worked, and my mom and I went to Walmart shortly after Thanksgiving to make the purchase. I can still remember the entire stack of them they had sitting right there in the middle of the floor of the electronics department. I couldn't even wait to get home. I had the thing open in the car. I wanted to see how that mysterious eject button worked, and if the cross key on the new controller was made of rubber as it had appeared in the photos I had seen. As we neared the house, I packaged it up carefully and prepared to uphold the agreement. Yeah, right. I can remember playing it secretly up in my room on a little black and white TV. I soon realized, though, that my parents actually didn't care that I played it early. They weren't going to have it in the house only to torture me. And so the Super NES was brought out of hiding to live in the basement with my NES. Hooking the two systems up to the same TV was such a cool idea. Sadly, this would be the last Nintendo system that would include not only a game and two controllers, but also all the necessary cables to hook it up. Ah, the good old days. Anyway, now that I had my new Super NES, I needed to renew my subscription to Nintendo Power, as I had let the initial subscription expire after a year. This renewal would take me through the next couple of years until I let it expire again after 1995. The games I acquired for the Super NES were still few and far between. This was partially due to the fact that there just weren't many games I wanted, especially at the beginning of the system's life. Ultraman was the only one that had piqued my interest. I requested it for Christmas and happened to rent it just before. Luckily, I found out that it was a better rental than a purchase, so Mom and I went back to Walmart the day after Christmas to exchange it. I wasn't interested in Pilot Wings or F-Zero at the time. I love them now. So I got what would be my last store-bought game for the NES, Tom and Jerry. It was a good game, but I was disappointed that I wouldn't have anything new for my Super NES that year. I lived 6 months on the Super Mario World pack-in game before purchasing The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past in May of 1992 from KB Toys with my own money. I would later sell it along with the player's guide to a friend in September of that same year. Christmas gifts of Mario Paint and Super Mario Kart would follow, along with the ASCII Pad Turbo Controller. The next purchase I would make with birthday and Christmas money would be Street Fighter II in January of 1993. That game would hold me over through the notorious dry spell the Super NES experienced that year. The only other titles of note, in my opinion, were Star Fox and Super Mario All-Stars. They're both valued pieces in my collection now, but for reasons unknown, I wasn't interested in owning them when they came out. It was also in 1993 that my NES was packed up in its box to wait for its future owner, my brother, to come of age and begin to play. It wasn't long, however, before he had pulled the console from the table to its demise on the floor. The console was discarded and the controllers lost, but the box and instruction manual would live on. Sometimes they'd be in the basement and others in the garage, but they somehow managed to survive all those years until I reclaimed them. They're now among the few original pieces in my collection. The console, controllers, and cables have all been replaced. The first of very few times I would stray from Nintendo products occurred in 1993 under the influence of one of my friends who had just bought a SEGA Genesis. I had always liked Sonic the Hedgehog. For me, that game was the only reason there was a choice to be made between buying the Super NES versus the SEGA Genesis back in 1991, just as Sega's marketing department had intended. Unfortunately for Sega, at that time, I opted for the familiar path. The lack of quality titles from Nintendo in 1993, coupled with a clever marketing ploy from Sega, persuaded my friend to get the Genesis. It was the 2 free games deal. Buy the Genesis packaged with Sonic the Hedgehog, and send away to get Sonic the Hedgehog 2 by mail. It was awesome! It was such a deal that I gave in to the pressure from my friend and put the money I was saving to buy Street Fighter II Turbo towards the new Genesis. To Babbage's we went the morning after one of our sleepovers, and I got my first non-Nintendo system. It was the redesigned Genesis, packaged with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Finally, I could experience this blast processing Sega was hyping. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a great game, but my lack of patience to develop any skill made the novelty of owning a Genesis wear off quickly. I decided I should just stick with the Super NES, as I already had a small library of quality games for it. I also yearned for the new characters and moves Street Fighter II Turbo promised. Back to Babbage's to get a store credit for when it was released. To use up the remaining balance, I purchased controller extension cables and another ASCII turbo pad for my friends who always complained that I had the unfair advantage of a turbo controller when we played Street Fighter II. It's been a while since I mentioned a birthday. It should be noted that my 13th and 14th birthdays in 1992 and 1993, respectively, mark the first time since 1987 that I didn't ask for a Nintendo product as a gift. It was a sign that I was growing up and that my interests were shifting towards music. From 1992 to 1995, my birthday gifts were components to a Sony stereo system I was building. It wouldn't be until 1996 that I would ask for Mortal Kombat Trilogy for the Nintendo 64 as a birthday gift. One of the last Super Nintendo games I would receive as a gift would be Aladdin for Christmas of 1993. Nintendo managed to revive itself after the game drought of 1993. A stream of superb titles would hit the Super NES during 1994. Among those were Super Metroid, Super Punch-Out, Donkey Kong Country, and Final Fantasy III. Despite the abundance of great games, only one caught my attention thanks to a promotional video that arrived at my doorstep courtesy of my dwindling subscription to Nintendo Power. Donkey Kong Country would be the last Super NES game I would receive as a birthday gift. I was actually expecting it for Christmas, but it accompanied the tape deck component to my stereo that I asked for. More excellent games would be on the way in 1995 and 1996. These included Chrono Trigger, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario RPG, and Donkey Kong Country sequels. Much like my lack of interest in Pilot Wings and F-Zero back in 1991, these games failed to interest me. I knew about them only because of the issues of Nintendo Power that kept arriving month after month. My subscription would finally expire at the end of 1995, and I decided not to renew because each issue received little to no attention before it was cast aside. My lack of interest in Nintendo could only be attributed to my new hobby, collecting CDs and making mixtapes of my favorite music.